welcome residents. Glad you could join us this evening. And visitors representing the Friends of Bingley. So here we are in October. Autumn truly upon us. Weather, trees, temperatures clearly changing. Just remember the clocks go back on Saturday. Get an extra line. COVID numbers are high in the district, and I think we should all remain vigilant and careful. This has not gone away yet. A number of councillors and all their families and friends have been affected, and schools in the area have been massively affected. So please follow advice on the NHS website, especially with your booster vaccinations. As Halloween and bonfire night approach, there are potential problems with illegal bonfires and fireworks being set off in public areas. Marcia Shirley, the ward officer, has advised that there will be extra support and patrols by police and by ward personnel over the next 10 days or so. But please contact the police if you have any concerns or information to share with them. Next week, from the 3rd to the 6th of November, there is an audio-visual installation called Light in the Balance in the Market Square, using the trees and light and shade to create an immersive experience, I am told. This is provided by Bradford Metropolitan District Council. Unfortunately, we had very little notice of this, but perhaps councillors could share details which are on the Bingley Town Council Facebook page, so that it gets a wide publicity. The Remembrance Day service on the 14th of November at 11 o'clock in the town centre will take place. There will be the usual parade, then service, but there are also services here in Eldwick and in Bilstead on that Sunday morning. The Christmas lights you may have seen were installed last week and in preparation for the big light switch on and for the Christmas market on Saturday the 27th of November. The process for adoption of a councillor for Priesthorpe Ward by co-option will be agreed later in this meeting, and the dates will be published tomorrow. Our last litter pick was held last Saturday on the 23rd of October. A small but select group of volunteers joined in and 26 bags of litter were collected from quite a small area. Many thanks to them. I have to say the support from councillors was disappointing, and may I remind councillors that you are able to organise litter picks in your own ward using Bingley Town Council equipment, and all councillors are welcome to attend any litter pick when it is held. And finally, I'd like to thank all councillors and residents who serve on committees and working groups to support council projects and enhance life in Bingley for all. Thank you very much. So, 21, 22, 1, 2, 4. Apologies for absence. The book is on its way round. Where's it got to? It's there. It's there, okay. So if we take those in order, the first one.
Jeff Winnard, Councillor Winnard.
The builder.
Thank you, seconded Rachel. Second one?
Mark Drew.
Oh, sorry, all in favour? Let's do these right. Thank you, that's everyone. Second one?
Councillor True.
Proposed Howard, seconded Maureen, all in favour? Thank you very much. And third?
Abdul Malik.
Proposer, Steve, seconded Ashraf, all in favour? Thank you. And
Dale Barton.
Dale Barton, may I have a proposal, please? John, thank you, seconded Philippa, all in favour? Thank you.
And David Hasseltine.
Oh, and David Hasseltine, sorry. Proposed John, seconded Steve, all in favour? So we are reducing the vacancies, but I'm sure we'll manage. So, disclosures of interest. To receive declarations of interest from councillors on items on the agenda, does anyone wish to declare an interest on any item on the agenda?
Stop Remembrance Day, I'll do the
Right, yes. To receive written requests for dispensations for undisclosable pecuniary interest. Received, anyone received?
What was that, sorry?
It was the
Oh,
remembrance thing.
I'll give the update on the remembrance of
Excuse me, Chair, I'm wondering if, does anyone like to turn these heaters off? 'Cause
Is it hard to hear?
I can't really hear and I don't think the hours
Difficult to hear.
I'm happy. But if we get cold, you'll have to huddle together for warmth. At a safe social distance.
Is there a thermostat in the room you could just turn down? Is there a thermostat you could just turn down on the wall somewhere?
Yes.
No, no. I'll move this table forward. And I'll try and shout.
Turn something off, I don't know what it is.
Well, it's glowing.
Just have to shout.
Okay, outdoor voices. So, 21/22/126, minutes of the previous meeting. You will have all received these minutes. Does anyone have any comments on them or would like to propose them?
So proposed, Chair.
Thank you. Seconded, proposed Howard, seconded John. All in favour? Raise your hands, please. Thank you. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favour. Abstentions? 3. Thank you. So, 21/22/127. Confidential items to be discussed in confidence after item 21/22/149. Should that say 138, Sue? No, it was last night, it was a mistake.
Yes.
To consider if any items on the agenda need to be discussed in confidence after item 2122/149, following exclusion of the press and public due to their sensitive nature. Is there anything that anyone
Can I
feels?
take advice on that? Those 3 quotes about painting the railings, that's like quotes, and we usually have those in the.
We do. In
So would it be
confidential.
appropriate to leave that? Because it comes within the budget discussion,
Right.
so I could just give a figure, but it's been circulated to members and to councillors.
Yeah, it's not to be agreed, is it?
No, it's just a
to give
figure.
an
Yeah,
approximation,
yeah.
isn't it? So I
Fine.
think it's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else that we think needs to be confidential? Thank you, we'll leave that then. Public participation. Members of the public are reminded this is their opportunity to speak to the meeting on any topic relevant to the work of the council. However, they may not speak during the rest of the meeting unless specifically invited to do so by the chair. Do any members of the public wish to address the meeting? Mr. Burfield? Yes?
No.
Yes? Fire away.
I am chairman of the Friends of Bridgewater Park. We've existed for 9 years now. And in that time, we've seen very little of the man who supposedly had residence in the lodge. He told us that he spent most of his time with a partner, and so it was obviously not properly lived in. We expressed an interest, mainly to do with its future status. They must have thought we expressed an interest in actually taking it on. So I was invited to a meeting, also invited to look at the building, and it was a slum. It was just a disgrace inside. Obviously hadn't been properly looked after, and so I said, what's going to happen? And they said, well, if you're interested, it needs £180,000 spending on it to refurbish inside and out. And I said, well, that's just a joke. And they said, well, the other thing is, in terms of its value, because it's uninhabitable, it has no parking space, and if the net curtains are probably 50 years old get removed, it's in public view. Its value is only £75,000. And I said, what about the land? Because at the back of the lodge was a formal garden, which is a jungle, and beyond that is an even larger space in which we have 2 sheds, compost bins, coal frames, etc., as we built ourselves. And they had no idea about that. So I showed them that, and then because they said, well, the £75,000 could now increase vastly. It could be over £100,000. Even that is critical for the building. It cost £1,000 in 1886 to build. And it has a big front room, 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a small bathroom, no upstairs, no cellar, decent store, decent room with the boiler, has got central heating. So the options are, they want people to make an expression of interest. They've got no idea of refurbishing themselves, and they've got no intention to re-letting it to anybody to live in it. They would lease the building for any kind with restrictions as to what the business might be. And of course on our group we have John Ackroyd, who is Bradford Council's, what should we say, preservation man almost. He's a cultural person who looks after buildings. He said they could make differences to an extension, maybe play with the roof, maybe go, because there's no upstairs, and it's not listed, even though the park's listed. So obviously it's going to come up for sale, they say, either by auction or by sealed bids, with an indication of what the price is going to be. So obviously, I've been here before. I was involved with the technical school, being the last occupant of the technical school, and as Donald knows well, we fought for months and months and months for it to be preserved as a community hub. The upstairs we're going back to the youth club that it used to be, for all those kids around Mornington Road and whatever, because they just knocked it down. So there we are. Are they going to do the same with the lodge? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any questions?
Would any councillors like to speak to Alan on this?
What would you have done with it? What do you think should be done with it?
Well, if somebody gave us £180,000, and of course I've talked to Marcus, my guy's Lockman, and because he said, what about a cafe? I said, yeah, but you need a business plan. What's it going to run on to maintain it? The other option, of course, was it to be some kind of open space for the community. I mean, Bingley hasn't got a museum or a whatever, and of course the kids to meet and when they come to the park as a reception centre almost. But of course the figures are astronomical.
Any other? Leo,
£180,000 that was quoted to you,
Sorry?
that £180,000 figure, is that to make it livable or to do anything at all with
To
it?
make it livable.
Okay.
I mean, John Ackroyd thinks it will need 30,000 on the roof.
Right.
Just take the roof off and insulate it and put the roof back on, not destroy it. But the rest of it, as I said, it's just a mess inside. It's got central heating, but apart from that, it's just a shambles. And then the rest of the outside, council turned up weeks and weeks ago and demolished all the plants around it, said they were going to put scaffolding up for visual inspection. It never happened. Then suddenly it came up, right, we're going to dispose of it.
So they won't be interested in letting you have an asset transfer, they want the money for it, don't they?
Well, it might be a building.
Pardon?
Might be a building.
Well, yeah, but it's a different animal, isn't it?
I know that, but the asset transfer, they would say the amount of money that needs to be done with it before it can be transferred. They'll be expecting us to spend money.
Ah, right, yeah, you'll make suggestions that we come up with, yeah, for a business plan. Fine, okay.
Was Councillor Heseltine with you at the meeting?
No.
No. Just out of interest, you know, I know he's very active with the Friends.
Marcus was. Marcus.
Marcus. So, anyone, any ideas, any comments? Donald?
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I just say that I'm glad that Alan has raised this, because it's typical of the scandalous neglect of our buildings in Bingley, and I do implore the council to keep an eye on the town hall, which is of course situated in Myrtle Park. I don't often get round there because of my lack of mobility, but the last time I was round there, it was quite obviously deteriorating at a rapid rate of knots. So I do implore you, please, you know, this is the fourth example at Town Hall of wanton neglect by Bradford Council of our buildings, and I really don't want to see any more technical schools or this building, or indeed, as we remember, the station master's house. You know, they just let the thing go, and it's certainly indefensible. Thank you.
Okay. So, Alan, what would you really like Bingley Town Council to do? What are you asking us?
Well, I don't think, all you can do is monitor the situation.
Yeah.
And see what the outcome is. I've already told you what their intentions are. So I said unless somebody comes up with the money, which you obviously won't.
Well,
can't.
We can't. I wish we could.
Yeah. So I just informed you as to what's happening, so you're aware of the situation.
I have heard that they also want to sell 2 of the lodges up at St Ives. Mm. So there's obviously a move to divest, yes?
What will they do with the proceeds? Not want to answer now, but if they do sell it for this 75k, will the proceeds be reinvested in the park or within Bingley, or would they be sort of siphoned off elsewhere?
Highly unlikely. But that would be something that we would have to push for. Yeah. You know, because let's face it, the work you do in the Prince of Wales Park, you really could do with, such as the Friends of Myrtle Park have got the refurbished bowling hut. You could do with something like that in the Prince of Wales Park, couldn't you?
Well, we've got 2 other buildings we'd like to do something with, but the council won't let us do it.
Right.
I think that's the backstop though, isn't it? It is that if you don't have a use for it, investment for it, is that if they do sell it, at least try and hang on to the proceeds.
Absolutely, to be invested in parks in Bingley, yeah. So, well, thank you for that, Alan. It's dispiriting, really, I have to say, but not altogether surprising. But we will monitor the situation, and, you know, let's put the word out. Does anybody know anybody with 75k floating about? If anybody wins on the Euro Millions, you know, there's a good cause.
Yeah, could you have some sort of community campaign where you could get it done up, you know, people can give the time up and maybe just sort of tidy it up a bit and then you could look at the lease or whatever. I'm probably being very naive there, but I'm just trying to think.
I mean, like people volunteering their time,
yeah,
like builders.
Yeah, exactly, or, you know, people can do
I think the time interval initially, they were talking about 4 to 6 weeks before they made an ultimate decision.
No, so there's not much time to go there.
I do think that it would be in order if the council agrees for us to write to Bradford to estates and say that we're deeply concerned at the loss of such an asset to the park, and that we feel that they perhaps should look again and see if there's a way of you know, improving the building, of saving it in some way. I do think we should do that. Would everybody be happy with that? Yeah. We will do that then. Donald?
Just a quick thought. As it is council property, would they not be obligated to restore it to reasonable condition?
Not if it's
because it's quite obviously neglected.
It's listed as well. listed, isn't
No,
it?
it's
Donna?
not listed.
If it's not listed, they
The,
probably
the
just go with
park,
the
the
cheapest
park
option.
and the
not
lodge are listed.
No, it's not.
Well, they're listed as some asset.
It's mentioned in the report and the official words, but it's not listed itself.
They probably go with the cheapest option, knocking it down.
No, just want to
I've got the list
Yeah,
of all the
that's
listed buildings in Bingley.
And somebody probably will knock it
Is
down.
it conservation zone?
Start
Yeah,
again.
what I can.
It's not conservation zone.
Is it in the
No.
interesting buildings part of the
It
neighbourhood
is.
plan?
Well, no, it's not, because we thought it was listed within the park. That the park is listed, and it mentions the park and the lodge, which is why I was looking with my eyebrows raised at Alan. But Alan would know. He's the man, aren't you? The historian. So.
Okay.
Do you want a proposal for that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we'll propose it.
Thank you. Seconded by Rachel. All in favour? Okay, we got that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Thank you very much. Thank you for your time and coming along this evening and for giving us such a full report, Alan. We appreciate it. Before we go on to item 129 and hear about Bingley Pool, can I just say that I'm going to move 21, 22, 134 up the agenda in front of 130 because Ashraf has to leave. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's right. I
Okay,
really appreciate
thank
that.
you. Well, I propose that. Can I have
I'll
a second,
second.
please? Thanks, Rachel. All in favour? Thank you, that's everyone. Okay. So, to receive information and update on the following ongoing issues and agree further action where necessary. So, Bingley Pool.
Right, hello everybody.
This,
Andrew
this is
Morris.
David Morris. Oh,
Yeah, Andrew.
it says David here. It's Andrew.
Andrea Morris, one of the trustees of the Friends of the Bingley Pool. Just you've got me tonight instead of Marcus, he's somewhere else, so sorry for that everybody, but there you go, I'll try and make the best of it. I've even prepared a few notes to keep it straight and narrow. Just in terms of the current official status, if you like, of the pool, I know we're all aware it's closed down, aren't we? But it's not, as far as a Friends view, for perhaps some more tactical reasons rather than being sort of realistic, that we see the pool currently as being temporarily closed, pending some clarifications with Bradford Metropolitan District Council. So we've had a series of meetings with Jason Longhurst, who's the director of Regeneration Place, not quite sure what the place bit stands for, but Bradford Metropolitan District Council. Because we've had sort of an objective to implement a community asset transfer for the pool for quite some time now. In fact, it was scheduled to take place during September 21. I think dates have moved with COVID reasons and one thing and another. But during, I think it was March or April this year, a couple of pieces of plaster fell off the ceiling in the pool hall, and it was quite fortuitous that the pool was actually closed down, to be honest, because if there had been babies in there and would have been struck by those items, it would have caused some very serious harm. So we're aware that the pool is in what we think is a dilapidated condition. The CAT, the Community Asset Transfer, was always predicated upon the council transferring to the Friends of Bingley Pool an operational asset that's in good working order, like Leeds City Council did with Bramley Pool, for example. So it's frustrating, if not disappointing now, to see that the condition of the pool has deteriorated to a condition we think is actually quite a neglected condition overall. We won't go into details, but it's quite a neglected condition, which isn't consistent with the business plan or the CAP process that we've had lots and lots of discussions and communications and planning with the council about. So we've had, and what obviously we don't want to happen is for the council to close the pool permanently and there be nothing else coming along in the slipstream, nothing else in the next 3 to 5 years, and Bingley loses this precious resource altogether. So that's been the focus of our discussions and papers and letters to the council, and particularly more recently to Jason Longhurst, Director of Regeneration. So we had a meeting or two with Jason, a Zoom meeting, 3 or so weeks ago, myself, Dan Fairfax and Marcus. And obviously we expressed our concern that the state of the pool that it's not allowed to get into. Jason gave us an update. They have been carrying out an option appraisal on the pool. You know, could they actually carry repairs to the ceiling and to the pool tank a rewire, a new distribution pipe book, etc., etc. And if so, how much would that cost? So the council's completed its repair cost assessment, and it's saying that now repairs will be in the range of £1.25 million to £4.25 million, possibly higher. And obviously there are quite potential lot of unknowns that we just start scratching beneath the fabric and digging down with the building apart if they put it back together. Who knows what you're actually going to find there in detail, so hence that wide variation in costs. The other sort of caveat that Jason sort of put on the table was that it wouldn't buy you, such a refurbishment wouldn't give us another 60 to 80 or 100 years of life. It might just give us, it might prolong life expiry by another 5 to 10 years. So Jason then went on to sort of quite clearly state the council's position that A, it didn't have £4.25 million plus, and B, if it did have, it wouldn't be putting that capital into Bingley Pool. That wouldn't be the most appropriate use of precious capital. So we obviously, we said, well, look, that's disappointing, for the reasons that I mentioned, that, you always said you would maintain the pool in decent condition, give us an operational asset. And also what the council has been saying for quite a few years now, and we're looking at sort of past Telegraph and Argus articles, is that no pools would be allowed to close until all the new pools came online. And we know that, for example, the Squire Lane, which was deemed to be, or is programmed to be the substitute pools for Bingley, is, as far as I know, not even under construction yet. So we feel the council has reneged upon a couple of promises and not a couple of commitments there. And what we said to Jason was, look, what I'm saying now, is that what we can't have is a situation where this pool is allowed to permanently and officially close, and there'll be no regeneration proposal coming in afterwards. So what Jason encouragingly has said and put in a letter to us, we don't think it's quite the form of a promise or an undertaking yet, which is something we are trying to clarify with him, that the council will now look at, well, first of all, it recommends that the CAT does not proceed, and that the CAT is cancelled. But what he has said rather cleverly, probably playing organisation tactics, is that if the Friends want to come forward and put in the £4.25 million themselves, then it would welcome going forward with the CAT on that basis. Well, that's clearly not an acceptable level of risk to the council, and it's not a manageable or acceptable level of risk to the Friends either. So we're back to, we're back to this regeneration option. Can you give us a promise and undertaking, a commitment and assurance that there will be a regeneration proposal within 3 to 5? So what he said is that they will look at a reprovision project. He mentioned a figure of around about £20 million, which certainly will be significant and in terms of would cover the cost by and large of a new pool, with other sort of related ancillary functions there too, but possibly a broader regeneration package at that. To be funded through either two routes. One was through a round 2 levelling up application, if eligible. What Jason has said is that round 1 levelling up applications have now all completed, and a lot of pools went through in round 1, so he said it is possible that with round 2 they might change the eligibility criteria, which might not be extended to a pool anymore. So we don't know, we still hope so, but there are no guarantees yet. We need to see what the round 2 application eligibility requirements are. So, and the other option was a commercial tendering, where we actually look at a commercial partner to come in, provide a range of functions, including a pool, obviously cover costs, make a surplus, and reinvest, depending on the legal structure of that organisation, either take that as a profit or reinvest in the community. All those details to be ironed out. But what Jason was quite clear about was that the council would be looking at either of those options unless the feasibility assessment established that, I think to use his phrase was, that the reprovision would wash its own face. I think what he means by that, yes, is that it's economically viable or financially self-sustaining, obviously. So we said, well, obviously, we wouldn't want to go ahead with the proposal that wasn't financially self-sustaining. Somebody had to step in, as a guarantor and pick up the pieces, or that we'd have to exit leases and quit early. So naturally, that's what we would want too. And if there's sufficient will and a desire in the community to get involved in this, then we'd be confident, especially with some of the information we had in our business plan to keep the existing pool, that growth around the sport and leisure theme in Bingley, the social educational theme too, there should be some growth potential there which we'd look to tap into. But so what Jason's saying is, yes, a reprovision proposal, £20 million approximate value, that provided it is financially self-sustaining and looking at down a levelling up funding route or a commercial tendering route. So obviously, what we want to do now is to, in the next sort of, I don't know, a few days or a week or so, we want to communicate with the people of Bingley and tell them where we're up to. And it kind of presents a little bit of a dilemma, because what we don't want to do is, what we don't want to happen as well is for the council, with all due respect, to change its mind, that we agree to the official and permanent closure of the pool, and then for one reason or another, downstream, that subsequently the council says, well, you know what, we're not in a position to do the regeneration proposal anymore, and then we're presented with a fait accompli, a permanent closure, and nothing coming in after. That's a situation that we're really keen, that we really want to avoid at all costs. So we've written back to Jason and asked him to give us a promise, an undertaking, an assurance, call it what you will, in writing, that there will be such a reprovision, subject to financial viability within the next 3 to 5 years. That's the other sort of criterion that Jason didn't touch on too, is a 3 to 5 years bit. So we didn't want to make it too open-ended, where 5 years becomes 10 years and 10 years becomes it never happens at all. So we've gone back to Jason in writing and asked him to, by this Friday, we've let him know that we've left that Zoom meeting and sort of read his letter, and that we're of the understanding that we have that assurance, that promise, that undertaking, that there will be a reprovision of £20 million within 3 to 5 years. If that isn't the case, if we misunderstand, then he'll let us know by Friday, because we intend to, from Friday, keep our options open, that we can start communicating such to the people of Bingley. We'd obviously had a business plan prepared with the council, which, if we have full and official closure of the pool, which is, let's be honest, it's looking, more than likely, if not dead cert, that would fall away. But I think I could share that with the council members anyway, so that they can look through that, just to, if nothing else, at least gain some sort of confidence, if not assurance, that there is a potential growth opportunity in Bingley and in that locality for these kind of functions, for these kind of services. And our next 2 milestones with Jason are that obviously we're looking forward, hopefully, to receiving communication from him by Friday. Hopefully come back and say, yeah, we will, give you, you can take our offer, as something in writing, as something firm and concrete, and communicate to the people of Bingley that the pool will permanently close, but there will be reprovision coming along afterwards. Although if he comes back to us and says, well, look, we're not in a position to give you such a copper-bottomed assurance, then obviously what we need to do then is have further discussions, clarifications with the council on what comes next. And so, for example, we could say, well, you know what, that's not really good enough for us. So you want to permanently close our pool, and there will be nothing coming along afterwards for the people of Bingley, and there should be growth in this area within Bingley. We're not accepting that, and we'd like to have a discussion with the Bingley Town Council and with the people of Bingley more broadly, that would they wish, for instance, to, provided that the will is there, would they wish to make a stand on this and do, for instance, like we've done down in Tower Hamlets, where they have people stood outside the existing pool with placards saying, save our pool, and we'd like the council to find the money and put it into it and reopen it. So some of this is organisation tactics, and we're not quite sure yet how it's going to pan out. Obviously, we're all realists, I think we've all got a pretty good idea, but we're fighting on, and it will be interesting to see, come this Friday, what, if anything, we have from the council. The other milestone, which I want to touch upon, the second milestone, happens towards the end of November. What Jason has said is that they're also rerunning now the Swim Sport England modelling exercise, which re-clarify how much pool water space they actually need within Bingley and across the district, but particularly within Bingley. So obviously you've got to be a bit careful with this kind of thing, haven't you? Because if this review comes back and says, you know what, you haven't got enough pool water within Bingley, like we've been saying to you all along, you can use Shipley, you can use Keith, and you can use Squire when it comes online. Then we need to be a bit careful about that, because what we don't want to do is for this assessment to negate this reprovision. The reprovision can be more than just a pool. But if the review comes back and says that yes, we do, it has reconfirmed, it has reclarified, I should say, that we need pool water within Bingley, then we would see then a pool being front and centre within the reprovision. If it comes back and says, something is reclarifying, you don't really need much more pool water or any more pool water in Bingley, then we'll say, well, that can't negate a reprovision for all the reasons that I've touched upon, but the pool might be a little bit less front and centre, perhaps more peripheral to the scheme, rather than being sort of the core of it. So we've also tried to make Jason aware of our views in that regard too. Now this Swim Sport England assessment, this modelling exercise due to complete towards the end of November, so we anticipate that the results are going to be shared with Friends of Bingley Pool around that time, possibly into December, hopefully before Christmas. So Jason didn't want to give us a copper bottom date on that as when this assessment would be shared with us, but it's going to be around that time. So those are the next two milestones. Looking forward to that Swim Sport England reclarification assessment, and are we going to hear something from the council by Friday of this week? I think that's pretty much what it is. You say for person, not, I didn't need them after all.
No, you didn't need them at all. Thank you very much. That was very, very clear. I'd like to open it up to councillors. I mean, I've read all that, I've read the business plan and things, so I'd like to open it up to councillors. Philippa?
We always talk about Bingley Pool, and it always, to a certain extent, confuses me because it's a building with more than a pool in it. So what are your plans, or what are Bradford's plans for the gym in there? There was the youth cafe. Are you in any re-provision would hopefully deliver all of that? But if the pool closes, which I think we all think is probably a fait accompli, it's just not got that stamp on it yet. Are those other elements viable in their own right? Are they still operational? Are you, as Friends of Bingley Pool, just looking at the pool, or looking at the whole building and that delivery of that facility for Bingley?
Well, they say the claim that the gym is still open, but I've never seen it open.
I haven't either.
So I think that is a bit of a smokescreen, really. And the youth cafe hasn't opened, but I'm understanding that they haven't in the whole area, have they? Quite a lot.
They're having ventilation issues, so they can't open the youth cafe, apparently.
I'd say the new provision will have these things in it, won't it? That's our aim, that it will have an up-to-date fitness centre, it will have something for community, it's going to be a community hub, that's our hope, isn't it? That's where it will go.
Yeah.
But it's, as for where it is now, with the gym and the cafe down at Bradford Council, really. They say that they're workable, but they're not open. So.
One of the issues that I raised to the Bradford councillors is that, well, that's a thing, was about youth provision, so it overlaps in a slightly different way. And I've been told by, I think it was Councillor Heseltine, that the CEO of Bradford or whatever is aware of the situation relating specifically to the youth cafe, because that was the nature of my question, and that they are looking for other sorts of rentable spaces nearby. So I don't know, I presume it doesn't have an impact on what we're talking about. It also might be presuming what we all presume the outcome of this is going to be. But yeah, just for added context to that question.
Yeah. But presumably any sort of repurposed or new facility would be for community and leisure use, wouldn't it? It wouldn't just be about a pool.
No, and if
it would be about provision.
If the CAP did go ahead, we'd be looking to refurbish the gym and keep the youth cafe open, etc. In the unlikely event that it does go ahead. That was always part of the plan, wasn't it? Can I day goes?
Yeah, I'll just say, I know you've got a stall at Bingley Market, haven't you, the week after next? I think the thing that the Friends of Bingley Pool have to be very mindful of, and Bingley Town Council, is not, it is about managing people's expectations. You know, you will have people who say, we must have our pool as it is, where it is. Mm-hmm. I don't think that that is likely. You know, so whatever questions are framed to you know, the public in general, I think you have to be very careful about how you frame the situation, so that people don't have, so that people don't have unrealistic expectations of what is possible.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything as well. Just going back to the points over here. I'm not aware. I've not been involved in those discussions about whether or not some kind of interim reprovision of that the youth centre. Just to reassure that any reprovision will be taking a strategic approach to it. And as they've done down in Tower Hamlets, where the people are outside with the placards, I understand it did wake the council up to the fact that it needed to do something there. And one of the first stages of that development project, or its route provision, was to actually canvass the people of the community and find out what they wanted in there. So, you know, we don't want to set any hairs running, but obviously, if we do get some assurance that this route provision will go ahead, then it will be a strategic approach, it will be a community-involved approach. Obviously, we need to be realistic about what people come up with. You know, it's a bit like changing rooms, isn't it? You've got £500 in 2 days. You know, you have a finite budget and a finite timescale. So things that there may be inevitably some compromises and some negotiations. But that's all part of project development, isn't it? And we'd have to sort of cross those bridges when we get a bit closer to them.
The main priority at the moment is the Sports with England model. We need to get individuals. We've done a template of a letter that we're going to launch next week, and we need to get individuals writing, sending those letters in. They're just a template, but they are written with all the issues based around why we think we need swim space, so things about being in the valley, that it's increasing bus and train journeys, which is bad for the environment, things about disabled facilities, schools. It's a long list of reasons, and also saying that Nuffield, Bingley Grammar School, Beckfoot, Duck and Dive, Shipley are not feasible alternatives for us, and that Keighley and Shipley don't have the right swim space, etc. So it's a long list of stuff, and we'd ask our councillors to get the message out about that letter, because it's about getting those individual letters in from individual people. A petition doesn't do it. They don't take any notice of a petition at Sports with England. They need hundreds of, well, thousands of letters if we can get them in, and we need to get them in really quickly. So that's going to be like the main focus for the next couple of weeks of the actual Friends group.
Thank you, Andrew.
Just one point I did forget, my apologies, was that we also asked Jason that if the pool is, if we do agree to permanent and official closure of the pool, of the building, it goes back to the discussion we had earlier about the lodging and park, similar issue, that we've asked them to bank the building to go into the regeneration project and any other related buildings too. And Jason did accept that as a discussion point in principle, along with the town hall and any other related functions. So I just want to make sure that we're all going back for completeness really.
Anything else from councillors? Lewis?
There's an inner city programme called the Jump Programme in Bradford. I don't know if anyone has heard of it. But the idea, the point behind the programme is trying to get age 5 to age 14-year-old children to be more active. And I know about this because I applied for the job and didn't get it as a project manager. And I wanted to get involved with it because it sounded like an incredible thing to do. Now, I'm fairly sure that that is confined to inner city Bradford. However, if given at the minute that there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of options, what I could do is I could try and reach out and see if Dave got any recommendations that Dave could say, here's what we're doing here, and then we could sort of transplant some of what they're doing as part of an official programme and incorporate it into suggestions for what Friends of Bingley and Paul are doing. Sorry, it's just an idea I had.
We need to take that into account going forward. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything? Right. Thank you, Andrew. Well, I think, as you know, Bingley Town Council are committed to supporting the pool in whatever shape or form. We look forward to seeing you at Bingley Market and encouraging people to complete the letters and to, and if as you know, we have a grant scheme. If you need to come back to us to apply for funding for any kind of activity that you're taking, then the door is open to apply, shall we say.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much.
You don't have to stay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Thank you. Okay, so where are we? Can we leave B, the hub building, and move on to the SIDS? I'm conscious that Ashley has to go. Is that acceptable to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, Ashley.
Thank you, Chair. And really appreciate that you accommodated Sid for I'm just got an issue that I need to go to. This project is a road safety project, as you're aware. It was done about over 2 years ago, and it was overwhelmingly agreed by councillors. And myself, Richard Holmes, and Councillor Heseltine worked on this initiative and trying to find out, because we were thinking there was a lot of accidents happening. There were 1 or 2 fatalities on Bradford Road, and the speeding vehicle on Cottingham Road near the schools and everything. So the SIDS itself, obviously, as you know, it's a device where you've probably seen it around, that when drivers are going fast, these are giving an angry face, upset face, and if people are doing within the speed limits and that, it shows what they're doing as well. So the beauty of these SIDS that it can be really located in different areas, so it's not permanent in one area. And also important with these SIDS, it keeps important data and information for councils for any kind of future road safety projects or initiatives. So it's vital information the SIDS can do. And it's also the Bradford Council said that the speed limit obviously in certain areas is 30 miles per hour. And they've got evidence to say, with the survey they did in 2019 saying between 42% and 49% of drivers drive at speed of excess of 36 miles an hour, with some drivers driving well in excess of 50 miles an hour. So it's they have so with this proposal, obviously it helps the use of the SIDS is extremely effective in terms of it's not really trying to penalise drivers, it's more of education type of thing. So at least if people are aware, they need to, when they see it, they slow down and everything. And it's also good for, in long term, for the environment as well, in terms of if drivers slow down and everything. Initially the project was approved and there was an allocation of 12,800, which was already approved previously. I don't know where that money's gone now, but obviously because of COVID and other things, the project was delayed because of Bradford Council. So obviously the project should come back. Under the risk assessment, I don't know if people have seen, we took the project to the Finance and General Purposes meeting, and I think we allocated, saying that up to £10,000 can be looked at. So the total for the first year, you're looking at 9,947, which includes the purchase of 3 SIDS and the council's annual maintenance as well. That's included in the first year. And I've also put it down as year 2, we're going to be just paying 3,600, so it's about £1,200 maintenance per SIDS by Bradford Council. So I'm suggesting that obviously we're going to get this, if we agree on purchasing this now, we need to have a contract at least for minimum at least 3 years to get the most out of this equipment, or up to 5 years really. So that's why I've given how much it costs in year 2, 3, 4 and 5. So that's the project itself, and I'm just wondering.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Ashraf about this?
John, I've got a question because I would support that. The question is this, that this came up at the FNGP as a proposal for next year's budget. Are we looking at doing it next year, or what is the situation as regards funding?
Yeah, I knew in this year obviously we've got enough funding. I'm looking at putting in for the next year. Yeah.
Thank you. Philippa?
Just a quick question really. So we're talking about 3 SIDS, but your form talks about one in either direction on that. Where are we thinking the 3rd SID will go, and where are we thinking the 2 SIDS might move if Bradford do their road calming measures, which we know there comes something on?
Yeah.
Initially, road.
Yeah, initially there was one we were saying near the school at Cottingham Road, and we were looking at one at Bingley Road where where the accident happened. There was one located there and one around, I think it was where?
Poplar House.
Yeah, that's right, Poplar House, that's right, yeah. Poplar House as well. And one thing beauty about these SIDS, one beauty about these SIDS is after about say 2-3 months you've had it in one area, if you think you calm that area down, you can locate it in a different hotspot. So that's the good thing about this.
On the toes.
keep people on the trail.
Exactly, yes. So
Oh,
you know, obviously we
great.
haven't had any kind of road safety scheme in the town council. So I think it's an initiative probably the public would look forward to, and it kind of.
I can't remember what the Bradford quote for maintenance covered. Does it move them once a year? Is that it, or is it more than that?
I think it's more than that as well within the maintenance. I spoke to Craig Williams. Obviously, we need to get the nitty-gritty. You know, I mean, we'll speak to Craig Williams. You know, I mean, who's the highways officer as well. So I think it'll be on the contract, which if we agree, could really.
I think going back to the original, it was definitely more than once a year.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if they move them, they'll have to, you know, set them up and check that everything's working, won't they? So that's your proposal, Ashraf. Do we have a second?
Waving my hand here.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no.
I'm ignoring you.
I know, not unusual. So I'm looking at the priorities list, that the latest one we've got on our website, which is signed off by Councillor Dawson on January 2020. You know, I've mentioned this before, that's the latest one that we've actually discussed as a priority. And you guys know that we've got priorities coming up later in the agenda. So whilst I'm pleased that this is quite a comprehensive risk and resource document, what it doesn't do is give the case to do it with the priorities. And I've got some sort of small issues with the way that the document's presented, in as much as it says which budget heading do you think cost would come from, and it says F&GP. Well, that's a committee, not a budget head. I would rather it said, please note there is no budget whatsoever for this in this current year. So we're talking about it later in the, you know, I'd rather we be upfront and honest with the fact that, as John said, there is no money in this current budget.
I think that's a small alteration.
Yeah, I get it. I get the fact that it is, but I want this council to recognise that. Councillor Gibbons said that, you know, there's a honeymoon period with these things, and you move them around. You know, they last about 3 weeks until people get used to them, and then you move them. So it does have resources involved in who is actually going to decide, which committee is going to decide where they go. Is there now a road safety committee going to be proposed to actually manage the location of these things? It talks about in section 12, this proposal will slow down traffic on extremely busy road. Well, that's only for the first time. What, you know, John said, you know, where is it going? And in terms of potential risk to the council, again, I'm going to say, if we put this in before we deliver a CP toilet, we run the risk of judicial review again, because going back to the priorities in January 2020, changing places is on it, this isn't. So we really do need to take a view and just make sure that we've got this positioned exactly right. And I have no problems with what it says in the costs or whatever, as long as we are aware of all those risks.
Yeah, I was going to answer that. Obviously, this was a really popular initiative previously, and money was already allocated to this project.
Not now.
It was 12,800. You know, I mean, I'm sure it was, and we were going back, finalising the details of the initiative, and obviously that money from that pot moved away somewhere else. Obviously, because of the timescale with the Bradford Council and the COVID coming in, and now the project's back on place and everything. I'm just saying, I know changing place is important, but we need to, as a Bradford Bingley Town Council, we need to look at other kind of initiatives as well, which is important, you know, I mean, so that's my answer to that, Steve, as well.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion?
You may.
Could we not agree that it should go forward as a possible budget item from this meeting?
Well, I think if we look, the first thing we're asked to do is receive and approve the risk and resource assessment form.
Okay.
So I think we should vote on that first. The next item is to consider the future purchase of SIDS. So the answer to that would be a proposal that this is put into consideration for next year's budget.
Yeah.
Would that answer?
Yeah. It's just a suggestion to move things on.
No, I agree.
And to cover what Steve said, etc., etc.
Thank you for that, Steve. So, would you like to propose this, Ashraf?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Yes.
May I have a seconder, please? Rachel, thank you. All in favour of the risk and resource assessment with a slight amendment as noted by Steve? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. So in favour, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
With the amendments, Chair?
Yes. Yes.
In that case, I'll put
1,
that
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's all in favour of that. Perhaps you could, because Nicholas had to pop out, perhaps you could liaise with Ashraf to make sure the wording was accurate. Thank you. And then B, to consider the future purchase of SIDS. My proposal would be that we add it to our list of priorities to be considered.
It's on there, Chair.
It is actually.
It's on there. So we
You felt it wasn't clear, so I would say that that is what we're saying, that it will be placed in next year's budget for consideration. Okay, so are you proposed that? Can I have a seconder? Rachel again, thank you. All in favour, raise your hands please. That's 9. 1 abstention. Is that
1 abstention.
Yeah. Okay, thank you sir. Ashraf, thank you for that. And if we move back to 21-22-129, update on the hub building. Eve, are you?
Yes, so the, where do we begin? With the insurance things or with the...
Well, let's do the insurance first.
So we've had the insurance people initially said they sent a loss adjuster, and the loss adjuster said that it should take about £2,000 to remedy the damage to the building, and that the insurance would cover all the cost of it, including any quotes needed. But then we got one of the chaps who came to give a quote said that it needed to have a structural engineer. So we actually need to get a structural engineer to come and look at it.
For the benefit of members of the public, you may have seen that somebody drove into the side of the hub at the back and took off a chunk of the cladding at the sort of left-hand corner at the back as you're looking straight on it. So this is what we're discussing.
So we are now obtaining our second estimate for the work to be fixed.
Okay, thank you. John?
So, whose insurance is this coming out? Why? If somebody's run into it and they've not always done it, is it because they ain't insured? Surely it'd be under vehicle insurance, wouldn't it?
Yes, I would like to think so, but we're going through our insurance company. I don't know if that guy is insured. I now have the details.
Okay. I understand that.
They will pursue.
Yeah.
I would also say that if the driver was under the influence of either drink or drugs at the time he was stopped and arrested, then his insurance will invalidate straight away, and there will be a civil case for our insurance to either take a view to prosecute or not.
I'm sure we'll pursue.
Even so, would we have third party?
It depends whose car it was, whether it was his father's car. I know nothing about the police details.
Yeah. I do have those for the insurance company now.
I just can't deal with injustice, that's all. Don't think why.
But I mean, it's for the insurance companies will fight it out, won't they? That's what you pay insurance for.
Well, it is.
Isn't it? Yeah.
They always give you a big stick next year, don't they?
Yes. Okay, and the next thing is the radar keys.
Yeah, so the radar key's been rather a saga. It was fitted about 3 months after we'd first requested it, wasn't it? Despite Nicole chasing you up every couple of weeks. Then it was fitted and we were categorically told that the radar key would not work after 6 PM, which is the time that the toilets lock. But radar keys did work after 6 PM. So it took us then another week or two to get them to come back and change it again. We've now got to the point where the cleaners, when they come and do their final clean, just have to put a boost to get in. So it works as we wanted it to work, finally.
So it has been a saga.
Yeah,
but there is a radar key.
It's been resolved, yes.
And the other thing is that the radar key is next to the coin slot, which apparently is not. We've had a complaint already from a resident because the radar key isn't in the door, it's in the coin slot. So if anyone asks you, or you know anyone who has a radar key, or you see them lurking outside the toilets, not sure what to do, point out to them that the radar key hole is where the coin slot is.
It's very obvious.
It is very obvious. It says in big letters, radar key.
Yeah.
So, anything else in the building?
Sorry, going on for the radar keys, what I found out today is that if the coin slot is blocked or doesn't work, so you can't gain access by putting 20 pence in, you can still gain access with the radar key. So we need to change some signs. So if the coin slot doesn't work, the sign might say, yeah, you can still gain access by your radar key.
Okay.
One doesn't affect the other.
Thank you very much.
Are we alright to have a look at getting some signs then? Just
looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we all know much more about toilets than we ever thought was possible.
And if we're on this, Chair, I've suggested that we have some sort of signage on the door to say this is. I know it's writtenable, but people come up and there's the two toilets and there's the main doors. Why can't we just have a sign on there saying the town council office or something like that?
On main door.
Pardon?
On main door.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to see this come up at a facilities management.
Fine, it's just that it was.
Because I think there are things about the door itself that could be improved about the entrance for the benefit particularly of the staff.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know when we'll next have a facilities management meeting, but I think that's something that needs to be an ongoing discussion.
Yeah, just a suggestion.
Thank you. 21, 22, 130, co-option of new town council member. To agree the dates for the co-option application deadline and extraordinary meeting to co-opt a new member onto the town council. My suggestion is a deadline of the 9th of November, because one of the things that we must do when we co-opt someone is we must invite them to attend a town council meeting. Not necessarily a full council meeting, it just says a town council meeting. So we could invite them to attend the F&GP on the 10th of November. Otherwise, we would have to wait till our full council meeting, which is in the first week of December, which is far too long. So that is why I've suggested the 9th of November. I've suggested the extraordinary meeting date of the 23rd of November because I'm going to be away the week before that, or for most of that.
Can I move that? No, can I second it?
Proposed, seconded, all in favour?
23rd.
23rd.
Thank you. All in
Apologies
favour?
for the 23rd, Eve, it's my birthday and I'm not coming to anything.
We'll allow that. We'll even send you a card out.
No.
Can I just say for those who haven't been involved before, we do have a co-option policy and a co-option process. Prospective councillors will be invited to come in. Everybody is asked the same question, or same questions. We usually have a short list of about 6 or 7 questions, which all the candidates are asked. And then they are asked to leave while we discuss and so forth. It's there, it's all in the policy. You can find it on the website if you wish to. Thank you. 21, 22, 131, finance. A, schedule of payments and bank reconciliation. To receive the schedule of payments to date and agree the bank reconciliation for September 2021. Anyone any questions on this? Anyone like to propose it?
Yeah,
You propose, John, seconded, Steve. All in favour? Thank you very much. The internal auditor. To agree the appointment of the internal auditor for this financial year, including mid-year and end-of-year audits. We've always used the auditor Diane Brown, and she's retiring next year, I believe, so we'll have to look elsewhere. But she has, she's been very good, she's very good to work with, she's very approachable and very knowledgeable. Proposed, John, seconded, Rachel, all in favour?
I think the consistency would be good at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Time as well.
Thank you very much, that's all in favour. So F&GP Committee, to receive an update and recommendations from the F&GP Committee, including on the following: A, to consider items for the budget 2022-23, including the priority list. Attached, Councillor Williams. You've all had a copy of this. Steve, have you anything to add to it?
Yeah, some word of explanation, I guess. At first glance, you might wonder why Bingley floral displays is priority number 1. Certainly, it's been a question asked of me. The answer is, by the time we get to January, we will have placed the contract for the floral displays for the whole of Bingley. And in fact, it is placed now. So we can't give backward on a contract, so we literally have to agree that. So that's why it's number 1. The projects really drive the extra over costs of this council. The clerk and the deputy clerk will put forward the running costs of the council, the IT costs, the hub costs, the laptop costs and things like that, and the insurance costs. And Eve will, as a proper financial officer, will populate that. And the F&GP have come up with a list of projects that we know of. Now that's not to say that this is an exclusive list. You guys might come up with projects that we haven't heard of tonight, and indeed the book will still be open until the meeting in January to review projects. But what the F&GP felt was that we should try and guide the council's budget making decisions by coming up with a priority list. So if there is a cut line when it comes around to January, where we're actually converting figures into a precept, and the appetites of the councillors therefore becomes visible vis-a-vis the increase in the precept, if at all, then the cut line would be aided by the priority number of the project. And so I guess that's where we were coming from. So Bingley floral display's got to be number 2. Bingley floral display's got to be number 1. CP toilet got to be number 2 as our biggest project at this time. And then the whole bunch of 3s are there because the F&GP couldn't see us not doing those. And then for the summer bulbs and the winter bedding plants is a tradition. I guess the F&GP felt that it would be a step away to move away from those. However, so we've got sort of a traffic light system going here of green, amber and red. There currently are no red ones, but the red ones you'd see as being vulnerable at this point in time. So the higher the number, the less likely it's to get on the budget. So with that, I throw the floor open back to the chair for leading the debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve, for that explanation. As Steve says, you know, we've talked the last few months, asked you to consider items that you may wish to put, you know, projects that you may wish us to consider delivering 2022-23 and afterwards. This kind of brings it all together. As Steve says, it's not exclusive. It doesn't mean that if you've got something in mind that you can't bring it. You know, this is all open for discussion and debate. Does anyone have any questions about any items on this or the way that it's been done? You know, what it proposes? Does anyone have any comments, please? Is everyone happy with it?
That's great.
That's good.
Yeah.
Any suggestions for numbering then? That's what we need to get, the blanks. We need to fill in those blanks
Yeah.
with numbers, please.
I think it's hard to put numbers on them when we don't have all the information for each project. Rachel?
Well, for SIDS, I mean, we've just approved that, haven't we?
We have approved to put that in the budget, so that could have a number.
So,
for next
what would
year.
you say the number is for it? You can't see it not happening 3. But
SIDS, I would say 5. Oh, well, I would have said 5 wires locked pavement markings is also a 5, because we've discussed that. We know it's £500. We've got an item in that coming up. You know, it's not going to break the bank, is it? 5 wires tourist way marking.
Well, it might, we'll come to that.
Well, it might, okay. Okay, well, let's make that a 6th. But yeah, I agree with Councillor Drucker that we've just agreed, Sid, so I would put that in as a 5 if everyone's agreeable with that.
Lewis?
Just as a suggestion, the priority order, I like the 1, 2, 3, 4 element of it, but if we're going to be adding 5s and 6s, is there value in literally numbering them in hypothetical order? So not 1, 2, 3, 4, but 1 through to however many items we've got here, 12, or whatever it is, and then we can treat them as a dynamic list or something like that. Just thinking out loud, because with that wealth of 3s, if we deliver priority 1, we deliver priority 2. Does it slow things down because we've got lots of things that are 3, and then we need to have a discussion, or is that acceptable? I'm just musing.
I think the F&GP couldn't see us not doing 3s.
Okay.
So that's why they became all 3.
That we've committed to them in the past. They are things that we have done every year or for many years, and they're things that are part of our general enhancement of the town, really. What is expected of by residents, really. And that includes the number 4s as well, really. They are, yes, they cost us, but in the value they give around the different areas, you know, that they're worth it. You know.
I think it would be useful as well to have this list with us in January at the budget meeting. So exactly as Lewis said, if it becomes a swallowing, deep, sharp intake of breath moment, then it could be. But Councillor Good, you've got a list. You've got a number for the question mark for Riverside Walk.
I have. I would have to say.
Would you like to declare your hand?
Pardon?
Would you like to declare your hand?
Absolutely. Well, you've received the 3 quotes.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
There's a vast difference between the cheapest and the most expensive, but I could explain that one to you, but not in this situation.
No.
I think the cheapest one would probably be perfectly acceptable. However, there is some other remedial work needs doing on the fencing first, i.e. some railings missing, etc, etc. So at this stage, I'd like to say 10, but probably get away with 8.
So, can I ask, you know, the solar cells on the roof of the hub, we're still waiting for further detail on that. We need more detail on the Riverside Walk. The water fountain, between 1,000 and 3,000?
Two different types of water fountains. The 3,000 is a standalone water fountain which could go anywhere in Millennium Park or the Square, or whatever we're calling it.
Market Square.
Market Square. And the 1,000 one is on the wall of the hub. It's a wall-mounted one. So there's 2 different options. So
right. But again, that's something that needs.
It's just a wish. Yeah, it's a wish list.
Discussion.
Yeah.
The only thing I would be worried about that, I think it's an excellent idea, is vandalism. How kind of vulnerable they are.
It was on Market Square, people, and it's a more open area. People less likely, perhaps.
It depends how sturdy they are, really. E-bus scheme in conjunction with neighbouring parishes. Are we any further with them after doing it? We don't know anything about that, right? And new laptops for council officers. Is that rather a lot for 3 computers?
The £2,000 came from the clerk, not me, so don't look my way, please.
Yeah, that was me.
Have a word with yourself.
We did get some quotes actually, didn't we, from Cloudy IT? What were they?
And for 3 full laptops, including Cloudy IT, putting them in, you know, putting them
yes.
right. About 1,000.
Yeah, it was just shy of £2,000.
And people may see why those needed, but these laptops have been here since the inception of Bingley Town Council, and we all know that technology dates really quickly.
Well, Nicola's got the oldest one because Nicola inherited Ruth Batley's old one, and it's got keys missing off it.
That's why I don't have my laptop, because I have so many keys missing, I can't.
You know, so some people might say, well, that's not a priority, but actually, I think if we want the council to work efficiently, it is.
And we did wonder if actually the laptop for streaming meetings, mine is a good laptop, it's just missing things, it's just, we could probably use that for that. and so then save a bit of
If
money.
the keys are the right keys that are not
Well,
missing.
exactly. It's just, it's only a exclamation mark, can't pull out my...
And Chair, there's one thing that's not on here, which is I've asked Cloudy IT to give us a quote for 16 tablets to equip every councillor with the same tablet, so we can move across to Microsoft Teams and all have the same thing. However, business case, budget, who knows? You know, the same requirements apply to me as I've been spouting to everyone else. So, not yet delivered a quote.
So, would we very quickly like to assign numbers to these, as in Lewis's suggestion, or do we want to go away and think about that and bring this to, say, the next F&GP for discussion?
I think you should do that because we could be a 10 minutes of 15
yes, and
minutes.
it's a long agenda. Yeah.
Has
anyone got any more they want to add off the top? Lewis, you've got to add.
I've just got a question about the water fountain. When I initially read about it, I was imagining this big ornate thing, and when you were talking about
modern aluminium, modern stainless steel.
I was thinking more that vandalism, people putting like washing up liquid in it, so I was thinking a big ornate fountain. So I was thinking fountain.
No, it's to fill these things up.
I was quite fancying one of those Victorian stone ones.
Exactly. I was thinking that's good value.
Prince of Wales Park.
Yes. Okay. Right. So may I suggest that obviously, if you don't come to F&GP, you can still comment and pass comments on to Eve, please. All right, so we will leave that there, if that is, lost my page. So we considered that, and we will ask people to bring ideas to the next F&GP meeting, please. Thank you. B, to consider the sale of Priestthorpe Annex and agree any actions, including corresponding with both Bradford Council and the developers, further information attached. As you will have read, correspondence with Richard Winter, the city solicitor, the sticking point for them is trying to gain charitable status, which they are struggling with because it is the Regulatory and Appeals Committee and a charity needs named people. That seems to be, I probably haven't explained that very well, but that is the sticking point in gaining charitable status. I have written, you've seen a letter there which I've written to, I haven't sent it yet, to Richard Winter, making a suggestion that the charity, that they should kind of start again and base a charity in Bingley with Bingley people on board. They'll probably kick it out, but I really don't want them to feel that we're just letting them get away with it. So my proposal is that we send that letter to the chair of the Regulatory and Appeals Committee and to the city solicitor. The developers, we agreed that we would write to them and ask them when they were actually going to build on there, rather than just, hoardings all around, right eyesore. Is that
the proposal?
Yes, please.
Second.
Thank you. Lewis, John proposed, Lewis seconded, all in favour. Thank you. That's everyone. Thank you. C, to agree an internals control member. Eve, what is needed?
So we need somebody to come and look over invoices, etc. at the end of every quarter, ideally. We adopted a policy that will be ratified on the next item, which said that we needed 2 members, but we changed it for GP to just 1 because we didn't think that we needed 2 members really. We've already got people as signatories and people as chairs of committees, so everyone's got lots of hats on here. So it can't be the same people that are all the signatories, or in fact the 2 councillors that sign Bancroft.
So that's 6 people out of the running. And it can't be the chair, and it can't be the chair of the F&GP. And it can't be chair of F&GP. So we're sounds awful. We're not scraping the bottom of the barrel, but we're looking for somebody who doesn't do any of those jobs to volunteer, please, to do this quarterly. Do we have anyone? Philippa, thank you very much. Well done, you.
Thanks, Philippa.
Is everyone happy with that?
Yeah,
Yes, we are. Yes, all in favour. Yes,
wonderful.
thank you. Yes. Okay. To ratify the policies agreed, CCTV, privacy impact assessment, the internal controls policy and checklist. Does anyone have any questions on those? Propose. Thank you.
Second.
Rachel proposed, seconded. John, for both, is this?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
All in favour? Thank you very much, that's everyone. Changing Places Working Group, 21-22-133. To receive recommendations and updates from the Changing Places Working Group, including on the following. To review the tenders received for the Changing Places toilet facility.
Okay, so we received 3 tenders at the appropriate time, 10 o'clock on the 1st of October. They were all modular suppliers, suppliers of modular toilets. Disappointing that there wasn't any traditional builders for brick-built structures. I could postulate why, but at the end of the day I don't know. What I would say is that we have 3 to choose from to take forward, so that it is competitive. I've reviewed the tenders, that they're all different in style. One was very wordy in terms of the track record, the other places that they have put CP toilets into, the CVs of the project management team and things like that, but the price came out as a single figure. We'll move on to that in a minute. And the other 2 were more aimed at the numbers rather than the words. So I think they were all different to read. You're welcome to read them. I haven't brought them with me. I think they're down at the hub, but they're available to any councillor who wants to go and dive into them. You'll see the different styles represented by the 3 different companies. But I've pulled together the chart that you've got in front of you, I guess, supplier A, B and C, to highlight the differences and where I have some questions, or where the CPWG has some questions. But at this point I'd like to say that there is a huge difference between A, B and C. So that's why the proposition B in front of you says work with the 2 lower quotas. So my view would be, I don't know what happened to supplier C. They've obviously got something wrong with their calculator. So I wouldn't propose to discuss anything with them other than sending them a nice letter saying thank you for your interest. But A and B are very close. They don't look close, but they are. If you look at supplier A as a CP toilet of 59,000, included within there is the cleaner store at 5,500, whereas supplier B is quoted 55,000 and the cleaner store adding 3,200. So if you do the maths, there's £800 difference between the 2 base build hardware. The difference being is in the installation cost. That's where the £7,000 is in the installation cost. So what I'd like to do is to get these guys in front of the CPWG independently on different days and go through their tenders with them to understand whether they're firm on the 20,400 or the 13,000, whichever it adds up to, and ask them the questions that are in the notes. We've got problems with the keypad at the moment and the access. Bradford's access officer is really indicating that we should have a keypad and change the number quite regularly and give out the number to a registration list, a subscription list. Also to tell functions like the market and the Little Theatre who have functions that this is this week's number, so that we are controlling the access.
Can you describe it? Can you explain this to me? I'm absolutely lost with this.
Right,
keypad, what?
Well, The CP toilet is all about accessing Bingley for
Right.
social.
I see. This is
Therefore, there is an expectation that it would not close at 6.
Right.
And therefore, because the cleaners go home at 6,
yeah.
you don't want the radar key having access,
No.
because you've got to have some other way of locking it. And you don't want to pay someone to come and lock it at 10 o'clock at night. What you want to do is to lock it down with a keypad after certain hours.
I understand what you're talking
So
about.
Also, anyone can buy a radar key online now.
Yeah, well, radar key is okay on the existing toilets because it's controlled by a time clock.
Yeah.
But the time clock would therefore be at 10. You don't want someone to get in there at 10 to 10 and sleep all night in there, and then come out in the morning. So it becomes an issue of security and vagrancy and drug dealing and you know, all the things we don't really want to entertain.
Thanks for that.
But how it actually is going to work, I don't have a clear vision of at this point in time, which is why I'd like to get the CPWG to ask them lots of questions. There's a fundamental question here as well as to whether we want a cleaner store. We have got cleaners kit in the plant room, which to me is not ideal. You've got electrical stuff in there, you've got boilers and pipe work, and we've got waste, you know, potentially being stored in there. So it might be useful to have a cleaner store where you can move the cleaners into a separate room and regain the plant room for exactly what it is, a plant room. So I think from an FM point of view it's not ideal to mix the two things.
Do we know at this stage what sort of size you're looking at suggesting for that?
Yeah, it's
so
about...
is it going to be a practical space?
Yeah, well it's the width of the CP toilet, so it's 3 metres by 1.6, something like that, with a separate door on it, with a sink in it, cleaner sink, and a light switch, basically.
Okay.
So
could store some gear in there.
Yeah.
Because we short of storage space.
Yeah. So if you look at it, you've got the optional air conditioning. Again, I've got no idea whether we need air conditioning in a CP toilet or not. I would like to take some views from Bradford, from I forget the young lady's name, the project manager.
Robinson Joyce, Julie Robinson.
No, she's the asset, the actress, the other lady whose name escapes me, the project manager who delivered them all for Leeds. Yes, Lord.
Yes, I'm just thinking the whole of the toilets and the whole system and the used for toilets not necessarily for changing places situation, but they used basic toilets for a long while, and a lot of the risk factor side would surely be already on the books of Bradford Council. We want to get all the information about the pros and cons of security for it.
Yeah, that's who I'm going to talk to, the project manager who delivers CP toilets for Leeds and Bradford.
Stacey, wasn't it? Stacey somebody.
Stacey.
Yeah, Stacey Walton.
Walton. Yeah, Stacey Walton. The other point about the plant room, of course, is freeing up the plant room yields space for a certain set of batteries.
You never know.
Yeah, there's a bit of an added bonus there. But anyway, so that's where we are on the tenders. We have 3 tenders. 2 are very close, 1 isn't. So can I have your permission, please, to go and talk to the other 2?
So we have that proposal from Steve. Do we have a second?
Can I
Yes.
speak first,
You may.
please?
Sorry.
Unfortunately, I don't think we can do any of that. In the tender that we published, you published how we were going to evaluate the bids and the weighting. That doesn't seem to me to have been applied here. So on that basis, I don't think, and given that you have got price figure and the budget is small, I don't think we can discount something just because they're expensive at this point.
I'm sorry, Philip, I'm struggling to hear what you said there. Can
you don't seem to have evaluated the tenders against the criteria that we published in the invitation to tender.
Okay.
Consequently, I don't think you can discount any of them at this stage.
Okay.
I think that the way forward is to meet with them all.
Okay.
In accordance with procurement law, you should be asking them all roughly the same questions. after which you should be scoring them as we've said we would do in the tender, and then we should make a decision of where we go forward. Because otherwise we are opening ourselves up to litigation.
Not unreasonable feedback, Councillor Gibbons, so I'm happy to meet with all three.
Okay, do you want to alter the amendment then? Oh, sorry, do you want to amend your...
So I would, under the motion B, delete the word "to lowest."
Okay.
Which now is to open discussions with the tenderers.
Are you happy with that?
I think that will allow us to move forward without threat of litigation.
Good catch.
Proposed by Steve, seconded by Lewis, all in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, can I suggest a short comfort break, please, before we get on to page 3 of the agenda? That suit everyone? Thank you.
The harmony of size at that point.
That is more likely to get that is more likely to get us to court.
It's basically 2 links, and I've basically spammed all of it with if you need to copy this thing, I can do that if it requires any skill or anything at
And the other thing I don't know, I can't stop recording. If I stop recording, it's not. You can't get it to splice. I don't know how to splice to yeah, exactly.
If you want to go, I don't.
So I'm actually not the victim of it this time.
That's, I think that's the answer. Bottle the water, sell the water.
Bingley screen. Yes, so I've seen 2 links where I effectively got all over the group from 5 down to decent straight picture of when you put it on there.
Yeah, no, I saw that one.
Yes, and that got some sort of attraction. I've been doing by Steve already saying, have you got the puppy or a frog? No, I've got the puppy, it's just a nice coincidence. So yeah, I had a decent amount of feedback. So I'm trying to collect it all in a spreadsheet here.
It's opposite.
Yeah, I mean, all I've done is I've not tried an awful lot of this before. All I've done is I've deleted it. That'd be quite funny. That looks like it's better than that one. No, I'm not doing that. That's irritating. But there is a spreadsheet somewhere in here that I will find, and I think 4 or 6, whoever the people are that I said in the industry, where we can
So,
you either might have to do it again. I can find
Thanks for that.
where I can find the people very much to the
We're
post.
still recording.
I've just collated the data, so all the information at this point is
Is this
data.
live then?
And then the idea is that it's outside of Bingley's collection.
Yeah, you don't. Is it live?
No, it's not.
I fully very low expectations of success here.
Ah, right, but it can be.
It's not on the CP.
There's an awful lot of people that want
Yeah, I
some sort of briefing in sort of hard period.
Yeah, I was going to say, to be aware of the situation that council will decide if it's an appropriate place. I live on
well, maybe it's
a bad bed. It's a great thing at the other end. It's a pleasant ground, and that's extremely steep at the other end. And they've always said, you know, no, put one on juices. Put more than one on a road, and there's only 50. It's probably about 60 hours. But last year, they were agreed to that. I know exactly where they are. And they also sorted all that over. But as I said, this job on Monday drive, which is a flat bottom mile. He's requested also, we have requested. So I'm thinking of forward. And I've been at the bottom of doing it on Monday drive, because it's close to on Woodlands Road. It's just a more
it might be that like they've got a show on.
But that's because I know it's more
no, it would be
probably once a year. You know what I mean? So really, it's you're never, I've been
has Ruth not
just for us, so you know where you're coming from.
Okay, what are we waiting for?
In my head, I've probably got a very long list. I already told David it's going to be a long list. We're not almost certainly not going to get it. But all I can do is to sort of, I've asked for feedback from residents. Here's the information, and I can explain as to why, even though it's not necessarily why this been here would be useful.
Yeah, big term. You want to say that, and you'd actually be able to see something if told about last Wednesday.
I am, but
you don't have watch for everything.
No, that's something that we've never
And then,
no, because it has always been said since the council's inception. No, but it's always been said that the chair and vice chair are elected. Well, obviously, I think it's all just been because that's the case.
So it's
Make up for me,
Is there anyone there who wants to put it down? That's the only question.
I think Nicola's completed.
Is there anyone there who's going to get out?
She's got to put some money in the book.
So,
She just found a book.
Can you, this, that's it, isn't it, really?
First and foremost for the old part, but then the straight
how
goes
many I
down.
looked in that were absolutely chock full.
Hey, all right.
Right, can we restart, please?
Planning committee. I haven't.
Guys and gals,
It's fun.
we've got 50 minutes before we have to decide whether to go on after 9 o'clock. And I don't know about you, but when it gets to this point in the meeting, I would always wish we had a tea trolley or better, you know, the energy's kind of goes a bit down.
I think we're pretty much are going to be chucked out at 9:15
Right,
as well.
so, you know, talk fast, Steve. That was a joke.
Guys, Steve?
No, it's fine. No, I'm saying talk fast.
Okay, I will, everyone talk fast.
21-22-135, membership of committees and working groups. To agree new members onto the following committees and working groups. Can I just point out something that we found out today, thanks to Steve digging. In the past, it has been accepted that the chair and vice chair are ex officio members of all committees. However, having looked further into this, it appears that chair and vice chair are only ex officio on the standing committees, which are finance, planning and staffing. That's right, isn't it?
Yep.
Those three. So, in other words, unless we change the rules, if the chair or vice chair attends a committee meeting or working group that they're not a member of, then they are treated the same as any other observing councillor. In other words, they have to go if there's anything confidential being discussed or whatever. So that's handy to know. Anyway, the change in places working group. Current members, councillors Malik, Owen, Trulove and Williams. The recommendation or the terms of reference are up to 6 members with a minimum of 3 councillors and ideally 3 members of the public. We did have 3 members of the public, one of whom was Lewis. He is now no longer a member of the public. Could I ask if any member of the public has expressed an interest in taking that over?
Not as much, no. Mick Taylor said he would if we asked him, but as we haven't asked him formally, then I would say the answer to that question is no. I
But he could be approached.
He could be approached, but I don't know. I think from a point of view of getting this right, I think we probably need to revalidate every councillor on the changing places working group tonight.
Well, I think Mark only recently agreed to go on it, so
he replaced Councillor Taylor.
So I think that Mark should stay there. Councillor Williams is the chair of that working group, so I suggest that he should stay there. Has Councillor Malik expressed an interest in staying on the committee?
However, other councillors might want to put their hands up. So,
I would like to continue being on the committee, albeit in a different capacity. I'm not entirely sure how that can work reading the rules, but I would be very keen to retain a place on that.
It just says a minimum of 3, it doesn't mean to say you can't have more.
It says ideally 3 members of the public. So ideally we would have members of the public, but if not...
Yeah, but you could still have small, sorry.
The thing is, if Lewis was added to this, you'd then have 5 councillors.
Could we then write
is it a matter of balance? Oh, right, okay.
We need to be balanced.
Well, it kind of needs to be balanced, but it needs to be balanced in favour of the town council, really. See what I mean?
Well, leave it. Make it 5 then.
That's fine then.
That sounds terrible. When it was formed, what we didn't want was a situation where you had, say, 4 members of the public and 2 councillors, and you had 4 members of the public who could be proposing things that weren't actually possible. That's really what it was about. I'm making light of something that isn't. I would actually like to stay on.
For that councillor Malik.
But
Chair,
hang on.
order.
But I am willing, if Lewis wishes to, I will remove myself from that committee, but obviously still reserve the right to attend meetings.
Chair, why do you have to do that? Why can't you have 5? I can't understand. The wording says minimum of 3
because it
councillors.
says up to 6 members.
All right.
And ideally 3, but it's right. Fair enough.
But we don't have any
just as a word of explanation.
Yeah, do we?
Yeah, we've got 2.
Oh, have we?
Yeah,
Right, sorry,
I don't want the council to write to those 2 members. Darryl Smith, he's access manager for 40 years or 30 years, but hell of a CV, really helpful. And the other one is Fiona Dunn, Mrs. Dunn, so I really don't want the council to write to either of those 2 individuals to say that there isn't space on the CPWG, just as we get to the point of delivery.
Okay. I think for balance as well, you need at least
It is good, but...
Lewis?
Is there a reason why it needs to be capped at 6?
No. We could change the terms of reference.
We could, I suppose, as you said, we're kind of hopefully getting towards the, end game of this. Sometimes a bigger committee is not as effective as a smaller one.
Too many cooks or something.
Yeah, I described it as a dream team like when last I spoke of it, and mentioned Malik, Truelove, Williams and the 3 members of the public. I didn't realise that we inadvertently voted on it in July.
Inadvertently?
Well, yeah, because if you read the minutes of the July meeting, Chair, it just says we resolved to add Mark Truelove to the meeting. And then it says along with councillors Mia, Owen and someone else. I'm not even in those minutes. No. So, there's a typo going on there, whereas Malik becomes Mia, Owen's added and Williams is missed off.
But I did volunteer to join the changing place of work.
Yeah, but you then deferred to Mark Truelove if he really wanted to do it, which he did, so... I guess there's an issue there.
Anyway,
it's never been discussed. This is the problem. It wasn't included in the May agenda, which is where it should have been, the annual meeting of the council. So when Mick Taylor left, that was when Mark Truelove came on. But nobody else has been agreed. This is the problem, isn't it? So this is agreeing it now.
So moving on, I am willing to allow Lewis to take my place on there.
Thank you.
And we have 2 members of the public.
So in terms of protocol, can I nominate councillors Truelove and Malik in their absence?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perhaps I so nominate. So, seconded by...
All in favour?
Yeah.
Well, that's 2.
Do we need to do that with Lewis as well?
We still need to do that with Lewis.
Nominate Lewis.
Thank you. Seconded. Rachel, thank you. All in favour? And presumably we need to do it for you, Steve.
Someone needs to.
So I propose Steve as chair of the working group.
I think actually, Chair, being standing orders, we'll have to vote for the
you
chair.
You have to vote for the chair at the next meeting. So I propose Steve, seconded Howard. All in favour? Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Yeah, thank you.
And do we need to propose the members of the public?
I think we would have to re-invite them.
We just invite them.
I think we just re-invite them. Climate Emergency Working Group. Current members, councillors Barton, Druker and Owen, currently inactive, need to appoint a minimum of 1 further councillor. Again, I think I know that I volunteered to go on there to make the numbers. This arose because of the resignation of John Brazendale, who had chaired that Climate Emergency Working Group.
Can I nominate Councillor Curdow, please, Chair?
Certainly. Are you willing to be nominated?
Yeah, happy to.
Thank you. There's a seconder. Maureen, all in favour? Thank you, that's everybody.
Can I just say that I thought we pushed this one back a number of times because there weren't enough volunteers, but I thought it was we needed more than 1. I can't remember that I've got terms of reference.
What's the terms of reference for this? We need another councillor.
Yeah, I'm sure when I checked it, it was 4
It's
councillors.
4. I would be quite happy for someone to take my place on there, I have to be honest. I know we've kicked it down the road, Philippa, but I do think that we need to be looking at reinstating that group.
Yeah, but I thought we kicked it down the road because it needed a number of additional councillors, not just one.
No, I think it was just one, wasn't it?
I think it was just one because I checked it when I was on.
But that was when the chair was on it. Now the chair is saying she left.
Well, you know, I said if anybody else wants to do it. So we definitely need one more member from this, and then, you know, that the chair needs to think about setting up the first meeting and you know, your agenda, etc. Is there anybody else willing to serve on the climate emergency working group? Robert, solar panels and all of that, and not your thing?
I have got my agenda with me, but there is the finance and general purposes vacancy. We come on to that yet.
No, we haven't come to that. No. So, for the moment, we still have Councillor Lewis, Barton, Drucker and myself. And so next month's meeting we need to ask again for another councillor.
It is 4.
It is 4, yeah.
Just checking.
Have we had any members of the public interested?
Well, I think a good place to start would be to go back to those who were interested before.
It needs 4 members. It says the climate emergency working group is to consist of 8 members. So we definitely, if we haven't got 4, it still doesn't go forward.
Yeah.
So we need 4 non-council members.
Yeah.
So we need
councillor member and now the council member, so me becoming councillor as Van Jack Stam.
You need to find 4 willing victims.
I know of one.
Well, we can talk about that sort of not out of this meeting, if that's all right. You know, it doesn't have to be even before Christmas. I just think it's something that we need to be looking at reinstituting. Emergency support working group. Current members: Clough, Owen, and Williams. We need to appoint a minimum of 1 further councillor. Do we have a volunteer? This is really what you might call the flood emergency group, although the actual terms of reference cover a much wider range of disasters, shall we say. But as we know, in Bingley it's more likely to be floods than anything else. Is there anybody else who's willing to join that emergency support group?
Is this an ad hoc group or is it?
Ad hoc.
Yeah.
It is looking to meet soon to, as we get into flood areas and winter. So it's probably meet in November, December.
Chris Slaven, who is the, I don't know what his job is, but he manages emergencies.
Emergency basically.
There was Mrs Williams, yes, councillor well, but again that would have to be.
I'll give it a whirl.
Right, thank you.
You need another body.
Michelle Chapman was there, wasn't she?
Yeah, no, she stood down.
So thank you, Rachel. And we're
Do I
looking
need to be proposed?
Yes, I propose you.
Thank you.
Second, Lewis, all in favour. Again, yeah, we, you know, as I said to Steve the other week, in 2015 it started raining in November, and that's why we had the Boxing Day floods. So I'm kind of quite keen to get.
I'd just like to say, endorse Chair, that as before, I'm happy to do something practical on the day, or as and when, as I have done in the past.
Thank you, much appreciated. F&GP, current members. You're down here, Robert. Councillor Beckwith, Clough, Good, Gibbons, Mia, Owen, Williams. 1 councillor vacancy. Yeah. So we've got 7. You're on there.
I'd like to propose Councillor Carney, who's got, would like to be on that.
Are you willing to serve on there, Molly? That'd be brilliant. I'll second that. All in favour?
Thank you.
That's everyone, thank you. Neighbourhood Plan Working Group, current members, councillors Gibbons, Owens, Truelove and Williams, minimum of 4 councillors. So we're actually all right for councillors on there? Although I have to say that anyone who wanted to volunteer would be good, because we really need to be kick-starting that again. with a new consultant and getting this to referendum stage. So if anyone else is willing to join or come along to meetings or whatever, we've got a minimum of 4 councillors. Maureen?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I propose Maureen. Right, you seconded it. All in favour? Thank you.
I did get a message today as well from Rob Dawson who wanted to continue on this.
Right.
But I don't know whether you want to re-invite everybody again. Everyone's listed on the website.
I think we did it. We did it in.
Well, I think we talked about it. We talked about everybody filling in the forms, and then we just need to make sure we've got them.
Yeah.
Because everyone who was on, who wanted to stay, were willing to take forward.
Planning committee current members: Barton, Clough, Drucker, Heseltine, Owen, Williams. Are they really 2 councillor vacancies?
Yeah, it says up to 8 members.
Up to 8 members.
Chair and vice chair plus up to 6 town councillors.
Right.
So it's up to, so they don't need them, they're just vacancies.
What's quorum? Is it 5?
Quorum is 4.
Well, I would like to propose Lewis Kirby off the Planning Committee.
Are you willing to stand, Lewis?
Yep.
Seconded.
Seconded by Steve. All in favour?
Brilliant.
Anyone else interested in planning?
Now get on by the way.
Let's leave something for our new councillor to do, shall we?
It's really fun. You get to look at plans of houses.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for that. Let's hope by January we're at full strength. Okay. Policies: to review and adopt the following policies, the publication of supporting documents. We have in front of you. Right, Steve.
Well, this came up as a paper at the last full council, and a couple of suggestions were made by the council to amend it. Those amendments have been done. The chair and the clerk are both happy with it, so it's over to you guys to see if you're happy with it too.
I did have one thing to ask.
I was just going to say that.
A second thought has been...
A second thought, yes, an afterthought. The only thing I worried about was item 8. The town clerk shall take such steps to ensure that the sensitivities referred to above in 6 are addressed either by sufficient redaction or by taking a decision in consultation with the chair to not publish the document. And then the latter should be a last resort decision and be open to debate by the council via normal processes after the event to ensure compliance with this policy. It seems to imply to me that maybe that the chair and the clerk, and I don't mean me, I mean the chair, any chair, you know, at any point, are kind of insufficiently trusted, and, you know, a last resort decision and be open to debate by the council afterwards. Well, if the decision's already been taken, is there any point in the council discussing it after the event? I just wasn't sure about the motivation for this.
I think the motivation was a learning. We're in new uncharted territory here. So if you take the railings tonight, we haven't discussed them. Councillor Good wanted to put them into the confidential, but the tenders for the CP toilets are in the open forum. So, marked as A, B and C. So there are sensitivities around them, but we've gone over it by redaction. So what the last sentence could be deleted, but, it really was aimed at tweaking the behaviours of the council to make the publication being the preferred option with reduction or disguising or whatever the word might be, to make sure that we have public scrutiny.
To me, the whole thing, I understand you put the background and everything. The only bit of it that is a policy is number 7. actually is the policy.
Yes.
Wish to make all information as possibly can available to the public. That's actually the policy, isn't it? That's the
But
rest
it doesn't actually say anywhere I receive that you want these documents on before a meeting, because the transparency code can be that documents are put on following a meeting, and your argument before has been to put them on so the public understand what you're talking about during the meeting.
That's the point I was just going to make.
It does. It says prior to meetings. So to agree to place supporting documents for each meeting on the Town Council website to ensure residents can read them prior to meetings.
Oh, prior to meetings, yeah.
Unless you decide that the sensitivity's there.
But how can it be debated by the rest of the council?
This is the point I'd like to make.
Go on.
Yeah.
As I understand it, this is to get information out to the public before the meeting. That's why this has been brought forward. So there's absolutely no point in the last sentence, because the deed's been done, the decision has been made. Is it before the meeting? Whether it's before the meeting. So that's how I understand it. Isn't it?
And I think
the clerk and the chair's made that decision, so it can't come back for debate. Surely, how can it come back for debate if it's the idea is to have it before the meeting?
And I think, you know, if a chair is elected as chair of the council, you have a professional RFO and town clerk, I think you should be able to trust, I hope, the judgment of those two people.
And the policy is checked every year, so if the policy needs tweaking in terms of further guidance adding to it, by examples, for instance, appendices, graphs, whatever, you could add it next year. So I don't have an issue striking out but John was, Eve Clark was adding a further point, which was if the meeting is if the documents are already in the public domain, what's the point of the agenda point which says which councillor wants to move something into the public domain if they're already in the public domain?
Or if they haven't been, if the chair and the clerk have decided not to put them in there, are you then saying it's up to the council to say, actually, I think that...
Well, nothing's going to happen during the meeting. There's no one who has fingers on the keyboard during a meeting to amend what's already happened. So, you know, I think the policy should be that we have open government as much as we can do. So...
Surely, what we talk about there is, let's say John's rounding quote, we might talk about round figures as he's already done, but within the closed part of the meeting and within a redacted document, those actual figures and the supplies might have gone out.
Yeah.
But we might then discuss that in detail in the closed part of the meeting. We'll still have closed parts of meetings to discuss the redacted elements of documents. I don't think that will go away because of this.
No.
And it may be that when we do discuss something like that, we would agree that afterwards that could go out. It might not go out before, but I can see where we would have a redacted document and then unredact certain elements of it.
Yes, after the meeting. Yeah. So I propose to accept it with the removal of that last sentence today.
I would second that. Based on argument.
All in favour? That's everybody, thank you very much. Green and Clean, 137, to consider any updates and to consider reinstating the Green and Clean forums.
I can update you on the plants now because I've actually had don't tell anybody. The plants are in the depot, but then it's down, but they need sorting out. So, sorry, there's been bulbs and plants ordered by groups.
Yeah.
The plants, I understand, haven't been. They'll be available from 7:30 tomorrow morning, but I won't be there at 7:30 tomorrow morning. But the bulbs haven't arrived. I've had an email from David Cransfield today, who was the parks manager, who's sort of similar to Brian Dobson but slightly different. who's handling this, and he's had an email from his supplier to say, which says that his supplier is letting him down at the moment, but they're supposedly on the way, and he's going to let us know when they're available.
Thank you.
So, can I, and it'll be left up to me to inform the groups as and when they're available. And
do you need
sort
a hand sorting them out?
It's useful to have more than one, yeah.
Okay. Can I just explain what happens, and then somebody may be able to volunteer. They're all delivered to the Myrtle Park depot. John has a list of what each group, you know, Village Society or whoever has asked for, and we sort them into kind of rows with the label on, so that the people from those groups can just come and pick up what they need. It's quite an onerous task. I'll talk to you afterwards, I might be able to help a bit this week. If anybody else can come along and help sort of shift plants and things.
When is this?
Well, it's from 7:30 tomorrow morning, but
It's a little short.
No, that's the message I got. The yard will be open. I have a key anyway, so I'm getting any time. But anyway, I can't do anything before 1 o'clock tomorrow, and I'm out Thursday afternoon, so it probably have to be possibly a Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning.
I could probably come tomorrow afternoon.
I could probably come tomorrow afternoon.
I might be able to come tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, we don't need Thursday if we've got all these hands.
The depot at Myrtle Park,
yeah.
Behind, if you go down the rough track behind, if you're driving, you know, behind where the vets was,
yes,
vet, and go round, you can get into the depot there.
You don't have to don't do that.
All right. You do if you're loading up your car.
Oh, sorry.
Are we taking them away or just sort them?
No. Don't let them.
so we're sorting them for people to come and collect?
Absolutely,
okay.
Yeah. It's it's inverted commas, a well approved
well-trodden path.
Yeah. But if you just want to get through, I never thought about driving there, getting there.
Well, I'm only saying that because I usually go and collect the Gilstead ones.
Come past the town hall and there's a gate, straight through the gate.
Okay.
It's like a wooden...
And how long do you reckon this task will take? I can probably spare a few hours.
A few hours, that's even better. It depends if everything's there and we can find everything, and you know, we don't have to, you know.
We can crack on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've got an excellent coloured list from our deputy clerk that I've got to commend. If you ever want a spreadsheet, she's your girl.
She is the girl for the spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet queen.
So, Green and Clean forums, for those again who don't know, were something that Edwina Simpson used to lead, and they happened about 4 times a year maybe?
Probably,
3 times.
Yeah.
And all the sort of different groups, the village societies, the action stations, people like that, and people just interested, you know, litter pickers, litter champions, met at Cardigan House on a Saturday morning. Edwina used to organise talks, maybe somebody from Bradford about recycling, or I can't think, somebody else from Canal and River Trust, or whatever, those kind of people. And basically just a cup of tea and a bit of cake and a chance for the different groups to network and to share sort of good practice and what was going on in the area. They were a very useful group, and Edwina did a huge amount of work with them. And as things are coming back to normal, I know from talking to people like Bingley Blooms and the village societies that those groups really kind of appreciated that lead. So if anybody is willing to work on that, or to consider, you know, leading it, you know, if you could give it some thought and get back to me. Again, it's one of those kind of accumulation of small gains, really. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it does give the council a lot of goodwill, a lot of support, and a lot of ideas too.
Well,
you know.
As you know, I'm not the best on the admin side, but I've always been involved with this. I've been to them all, and I've got an idea what goes on, so if anybody else would like to support it, I'd be...
So if you wouldn't mind giving it some thought or putting your hand up now, it's something that's, I think, really worthwhile for the council. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'd quite like to see them start again sort of in the spring. Really.
Yeah.
21-22-138 5 Riseway marking. Philippa.
I'll be brief. You've got the document.
Yeah.
Hopefully you've read it. Bradford are broadly positive about what we want to do. General consensus that we should get the way marking in place for Easter 2022. The possible issues we've still got to iron out are more around the brown signs and moving them around. Bradford are going to come back with some costs for that. There's an indication they might not have the full budget to work with them, and especially the sign on the slip road coming off the bypass that still has the water bus on it is the one that will be costly to stick a bit of something over because of all the traffic management, and it's the outside lane of the slip road.
Can we not get some teenager with a can of paint and tag it?
I did also suggest that I could go out with the screwdriver and move some of the other little signs, but that didn't go down well. But wait for Bradford to come back. Wait, I think we might need a few more of the little water bus signs just to move everything properly down to the car park.
Okay.
And it's likely, and I'm hopeful that Bradford will pay to replace the 2 signs that send people up Park Road because they're just completely incorrect. But as and when we come back with all of those things, I'll revise the risk and resource assessment. The only other thing is we do need to apply for a licence every time we apply these things. So we'll have to do it on a...
Licence for?
For working on the highway or the pavement.
Okay. Well, thanks for that work, Philip. It would be great to have these in place really for next spring, if possible. Thank you very much. 21-22-139 playing the park, Rachel.
There's not really much to update at the moment. Lee Clapham, who is the person I contact, he's on holiday at the moment. So in the interest of time, shall we park this until the meeting in November?
That's fine.
Is that all right?
Yeah, of course it is. 21-22-140 markets. You've all just seen the update I sent out, and the meeting with Otley Town Partnership to discuss next year's markets. You're all welcome to attend. 21-22-141 allotments. Are there any allotment issues?
I can update you. I've been in touch with Ruth today to find out. She's looking to. We've agreed for some demolition of a derelict building. That's hopefully going ahead later this week, or weather permitting, followed by the site levelling. Following on from that, there's been a tree survey, but I've not.
We haven't received it yet.
No. We've put in for some planning for some trees to be removed. We've just had an acknowledgement from Bradford Council that they've received it, but Ruth looked on the portal and said it's still pending. So I think that's all for now. Yeah.
Right, thank you. 21-22-142 Remembrance Day 2021. Received an update and to agree litter picking prior to the service. So, Maureen, do you want to just quick word about the parade?
Yeah, it's going ahead as it did in 2019. It's full parade and service. Be kicking off about 10 o'clock. The roads will be closed from 10:30 to 12:30. Buses will be diverted. We're not going to Town Hall afterwards for refreshments because the Bradford Council is still like that about public buildings to be used and that sort of thing. So we basically just said we're not doing that for this year, but everything's going as planned, hopefully. We usually do have a litter pick usually it's
That,
John.
yeah, we're going to come on to that.
And then
Yes,
between
yes, yes.
the other thing we could do with hand width is the 3 boxes at the WI, the 3 planters that are in front of the cafe on Queen Street.
Oh, yeah.
We just really in the morning we need a few of us to just manoeuvre them out of the way because obviously the parade's lines up on Queen Street and people are going to be banging into them and walking.
We're talking, which, you're
The
talking
big
about?
rectangular planters.
Yeah, the wooden rectangular ones, there's 3, isn't there, that are where the bollards are. Because obviously the road's closed off, isn't it, on the cobbles at the side of the square.
All right.
And they just need
I think
moving
they're
tools.
owned by Bradford Med.
Well, we didn't know if they were at WI.
No, the WI don't own them, they just maintain them.
I just need to just clarify this. Are we talking the ones opposite the old library?
Yes.
The big blue ones?
No.
The word
No, by the lounge.
Them's not
Coffee
ours.
bar.
There's nothing to do with us.
No.
I think they belong to cafe.
Were they?
Were they there last year?
Well, we
didn't
weren't
know
there
it
the
last
year
year.
before last.
We didn't have a
We
parade
didn't have a
last
parade
year.
last
No,
year.
no.
They weren't there the year before last.
No, they're nothing to do with us then.
No.
Not Bingley Town Council, but I mean,
Might
I'm sure they can be
the
moved.
lounge then.
I'll pop in and have a
You
look
just
at it,
would-
as long as I get permission to move them.
I was going to say, will you find out if they belong to them? Because I'm pretty confident I will get. I don't think it's anything we've.
No, Marcus seemed to think they were WIs, but I'll find out.
No, they
I
don't
don't think
actually
so.
own anything, they just
plant them up.
But I don't know if they plant those ones.
That's a point. Yeah.
Okay,
Irrespective
let's
of
check.
Action stations, the veggie.
Yeah, they just need moving until the end of the service and then come back, put them back. It's just got
3 next.
the hazard, you know, with all, we're going to have like 200 people trudging through there.
You're fine. Okay.
Okay, litter picking on the day?
Yeah, we usually do that. So if it's starting at 10, we'd have to start 8, half 8, wouldn't we? Just to blow it off. I mean, it's mainly leaves.
It's only around the central area because Bradford Met do a clean up in the park.
The parks.
I reckon an hour would be alright.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, 9 o'clock then.
Okay.
And I'll bring my big blower.
How should we say doing his leaf blower?
So if anyone is available to help in the morning before the parade, you know, go to John for your orders really.
I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think it's just, I've ordered the wreath, so it just needs, you know. He's opened his stall this morning.
Yeah, sorry, actually.
I see, I need one for the Village Society, thank you.
What's actual route then, Maureen?
So we'll be starting on Queen Street,
Yeah.
next to the Market Square Tavern,
Yeah.
and then we'll go up Main Street,
Yeah.
turn right on Myrtle Avenue,
Myrtle Place.
Place.
Yeah. And just up into.
Dignitaries join it at the pool, and then we just go up to the cenotaph.
Right.
When coming back though, we just go up to the town hall and stuff. That way we don't go back through the town anymore.
Yes. It's shortened to when I can remember when at the Scouts we had it at Mornington Road Church and walked right on Leonard Street.
Yeah.
Marched on Leonard Street and
I
back.
can remember doing them St George's Day. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you. 21, 22, 143, Christmas lights switch on. 27th of November, the Christmas market is from 10 till 4. We have a stall inside the art centre, and I think there was myself. I know I had 3 other volunteers. Jeff, maybe?
Jeff.
I did it one year.
Can't remember.
You did have me, but unfortunately I'm not here now, so sorry.
Yeah, no, I said I'd do it depending on how much.
Did you agree this last?
I've got it in my diary.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You must have.
I think you were on it, Steve.
I can do it. I can do it at an early shift.
An early shift, right. Well, that'd be good because I promised to help Michelle from 7:30 to stall elders. I don't know why I did that. I don't do Saturday mornings anyway.
I didn't mean 7:30.
Yeah. I said I'll be doing that, so you.
And then from like 10.
Yeah, that's fine. And we just have to make sure that we've got stuff on the stall, wear your badges, and just willing to talk about town council.
That's what I was there. I put the grotto up, then I went and got that stuff.
Right.
And put that.
Well, I
So
don't think
we
I
just
have
need
any
a table
grottos
and
yet.
I don't know, they have table, don't they?
Yeah.
Do we need banner? I will discuss
Just
that.
need banner and stuff. Okay. 21-22-144, Town and Country Planning Association to consider subscribing for membership to the Town and Country Planning Association, £90 annually.
So moved.
Thank you. Seconded. Howard, all in favour? Yeah, I think this is worth doing. 21-22-145, the Town Clerk's report, which you have received. Has anyone any questions for Eve on this? Thank you. Thanks, Eve, for that. Correspondence 21-22-146, to consider any correspondence received by the Council. An email from local police re garages by St Joseph's Primary School. There was a concern about a rough sleeper on those garages by Nethermore View. If you know where that is. Sacred Heart Church is there, Nethermore View is there, and St Joseph's School is there. Some garages at the bottom. So the police were informed and have been monitoring it, I presume. Email from Bradford Council re sports chest funding, £1,000. We've all seen that. If anybody's involved in any groups that can apply, need to crack on with it. The email letter from Jason Longhurst at Bradford Council, which you've all read and heard from Andrew. Disappointing, I would say, is the word I would use, but not unexpected. Email on behalf of Micklethwaite Village Society re-request the Christmas tree.
What's that?
They asked why they weren't having a Christmas tree.
That was an email I received from you, actually, wasn't it?
They contacted me and asked me they'd got it. They'd given some information that we were giving out Christmas trees to all Village Society.
No.
Well, no.
So I put them straight and I put it to...
There is a rolling programme.
I've told Council Trove they want to be considered next year for the lights.
Yeah,
so.
that's
okay.
Email from Internal Auditor re half-yearly audit review.
Yeah, so Diane, now that she's been appointed again, she'll be doing an audit. Is it the 8th? The 8th of November, isn't she? She's been...
Off the top of my head, I can't remember. It's either the 8th now.
It's in the 8th. So again, it's come at a really good time for the finances.
Email from Town and Country Planning Association.
That's
just agreed. All right, thank you. 21-22-147 promotional items. My suggestion would be, I've lost my page one. Okay, so my suggestions would be that we had input from Andrew Morris regarding Bingley Pool, just a brief. For the hope that the radar key is working and is there on the key part. The co-option of a town council member, dates for that, the agreement for the internal audit, items for the budget to be considered. Do we want to put the priority list on the monthly mailing? No? I mean, it's available anyway, isn't it?
Supporting document.
Yes.
But it's not on there because they haven't been put on there, the supporting document.
No, I think I'd like to advertise the supporting document policy just been agreed, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I'm working through.
Yeah, sorry.
The Sailor Priest Thorpe Annex, the fact that we're writing to them to ask to move the charity to Bingley, that we've ratified those policies. Do you want any publicity for the Change in Places working group? Just that tenders have been
received and have been evaluated.
Yeah. That we've agreed to put speed indicator devices into the budget for next year. I don't think we need to publicise the membership of committees and working groups particularly. Another policy that we've got the publication of supporting documents policy. Do you want to put anything on about the 5 hours waymarking, or just leave it till we've got something more concrete?
Just leave it until we've got something.
Okay. Remembrance Day we will put on, and the Christmas lights switch on. Is everybody happy with that? Okay, thank you. So, exclusion of press and public to result that members of the press and public be excluded from item 21.22.149 under the provision of the public bodies. Admissions to Meeting Act 1960 during consideration of items of a confidential nature. Proposed, John, seconded. Howard, thank you. All in favour?
Stopping streaming now.
Sorry?
I think you need to announce that we're stopping recording.
And we will now stop recording.
And saying goodbye to YouTube.
Bye bye.
Goodbye. Okay, are we switched off?
We will in a second.